Hey everyone, my name is Sean, and in today's video we're going to be looking at a variant of pure Shaddolls. We're going to be looking at Shaddoll Invoked, probably the most popular version of Shaddolls in the game right now for people to play. I deliberately wanted to take a look at the deck in its pure sense of form before I looked at mixing it with invoked cards, because playing Invoked Shaddoll is a lot different than playing pure Shaddoll, and I really wanted to kind of learn the archetype in its natural self before actually adding other cards to it. I do feel that playing the Invoked Shaddoll version is not the best way to play the Invoked deck. I think playing Invoked Mech Knights is definitely better, because the Mech Knight monsters give you more monsters for your hand to discard for Mechaba, and they also provide you with more light monsters than Shaddolls can ever hope to do so. So I do kind of think that variant is better, but I was requested to do this by Sean X, a subscriber to the channel. So here you go, Sean. Sorry it's taking so long, but let's go into the profile. So this is the pure version of Shaddolls that I posted a video of last week, and now we're going to do a breakdown of Invoked Shaddoll. So here are the starters for Invoked Shaddoll. Shaddolls naturally do not have any really good starter cards, and so that is what the Invoked Engine is here to provide, a good set of starter cards. So we have 12 starters. We have Alistair the Invoker along with Terraforming and Magical Meltdown to go and search out Invocation. We have Foolish Burial, which can send any Shaddoll card to the graveyard to trigger an effect. We are playing 3 copies of Instant Fusion. This can summon out Invoked Caliga, Invoked Raijin, and it can also summon out Shaddoll Winder, giving you an easy way to get to one of your fusion monsters without having to get 2 cards to your hand or wherever you need them to be. And then we're playing 1 copy of Neo's Fusion. Technically this is a starter card. If you draw it, you ideally want to use it off of Predaplant Verte Anaconda, but if you draw it, you can still use it straight away as a starter card, because it takes the monsters from your hand deck or the field, so it's absolutely fine if you draw into this early as well. The extenders are mostly all the Shaddoll cards. All of the Shadolls are extenders. So we have 1 copy of Aerial. Aerial is kind of like a combo extender. You use it with Shaddoll Incarnation, where you use Shaddoll Incarnation in the graveyard, banish itself and 1 monster, and then you flip over Aerial through Shaddoll Incarnation's effect. And then once Aerial is flipped over, it will summon back the monster that you banished via Shaddoll Incarnation. So that's really, really good to do. But it's also a way of getting back any Shaddoll monsters that were banished off of Invocation, which doesn't happen too often, but there might be some niche situations where it does happen and you want to get that card back to the field. We have Shaddoll Renly at 3, the best Shaddoll monster. You use her by a card effect, send her to the graveyard by a card effect, and then you'll be able to summon a Shaddoll monster from your deck. Similarly for her flip effect as well. Beast lets you draw a card. Falco summons itself back to the field, and if it's on the field already and you flip it face up, it can summon a Shaddoll from your graveyard. Hedgehog at 2, we're playing in order to add a Shaddoll from our deck to our hand. And then we're playing triple Squamata, which is the Foolish Burial for Shaddolls, sending 1 from the deck to the graveyard. Can also destroy monsters on the field if it was flipped face up, and it gets its flip effect. We have 3 copies of El Shaddoll Fusion, mandatory for the deck. Quick play fusion spell, with also 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion, it's also mandatory for the deck. Really, really good going second this card. If your opponent has a monster on the field that was summoned from the extra deck, you can send cards directly from your deck to the graveyard. Great way to play this efficiently. But it's also very, very easy to recur, but you can only use both of these once per turn, which is why we play 3 of each in order to give us the best chance of drawing into them and then recycling them with our own cards. Invocation is here as well at 3. You mostly use this to go into Invocation monsters or Invoked monsters. The best way to use this is when Alistair is on the field or in your graveyard, ideally in your graveyard. That way he will become banished, and if you have a banished Alistair, you can shuffle this card, or you can shuffle the Alistair, you can shuffle this card back into your deck and then add the Alistair to your hand. That is often used in order to have an effect monster in your hand to discard for Invoked Mechaba. But it could also just be used just to get Alistair and have another starter for a follow-up turn. Then we have 1 Shaddoll Core and 1 Shaddoll Incarnation. Incarnation, I kind of spoke about what it does already, but it flips your monsters face down, from face down to face up position, which is a nice way to trigger their effects, and also helps with Aerial to summon the monster to the field. And then you have Shaddoll Core, which is a trap monster that can change or can fulfill the attribute requirement for any Shaddoll monster, and then if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 spell or trap card in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. Good way to recycle your fusion spell cards. Your extra deck monster extenders are quite different. You have App Cologne at 1. I've decided only to go for one of every mainline Shaddoll card. The thing about Invoked Shaddoll is in Pure Shaddoll we play multiple App Cologne and we play multiple Construct, and they're really good. But in Shaddoll Invoked, you don't have a lot. It's harder to make these cards consistently. App Cologne isn't too hard to make, but Construct is definitely harder to make consistently. So we're only playing one of each of them, but they are really good ones. App Cologne is great because when it hits the field, it can negate a face-up card in the field. But also, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Shaddoll card from your deck or graveyard to your hand and then discard one card. So it's a great way to trigger off any effect that you need in a moment. Then we have El Shaddoll Construct. When this card is summoned, you send one Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard. And then if this monster battles another monster special summoned, it destroys that monster automatically. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Shaddoll spell trap card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. We are playing one copy of Gravity Controller. This is a way of sending your Shaddoll monsters from your extra deck monster zone directly to the graveyard. That if you're in a situation where you really need to get back Shaddoll spell and trap card, or you want to trigger App Cologne's effect, you can summon it first and then just automatically send it to the graveyard without having to have much setup at all via Gravity Controller's effect. Gravity Controller isn't too bad on its own either. It does have a bit of a removal effect where at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster in the extra monster zone, you can return both that opponent's monster and this card to the deck. And this card cannot be destroyed by battle by a monster in the main monster zone, so he does sit around for a bit, but he isn't too powerful. He's really just an extender to trigger off your Shaddoll cards. We have Predator Plant Variety Anaconda, a very popular card for this deck and very good card for this deck. You can either choose to turn one monster on the field to a dark attribute, making it more useful for you to use with things like Super Polymerization, or you can do the effect to pay 2,000 life points, send one fusion or poly spell from your deck to the graveyard, and this copies its effect but doesn't copy its restrictions, which is really nice. So it's a good way of getting to any fusion spell that you want to and sending cards to the graveyard. If I could, I would even play multiple copies of this one here. We play one copy of Almirage. Almirage is in here just to basically get Alistair to the graveyard. So you normal summon Alistair, search out Invocation, and then you make Almirage just to put it in the graveyard and have a fire monster accessible. This is important for if you want to go to Purgatrio later on in your combo, but it's also just a way of getting Alistair into the graveyard quicker, kind of like how Gravity Controller does that for Shaddolls. But then, going from Almirage, you can make Secure Gardener. Now, Secure Gardener requires one Cyber's Link monster to summon, which Almirage fulfills the requirement of, and this is basically here just to put a light monster on the field for you to then go into either Construct or into Mechaba. Managing your Secure Gardener is kind of important, and it's something you should practice doing, because you want to get the most out of this effect. You ideally want to make Construct first if possible, send it to the graveyard, and then while it's in the graveyard you have a light monster ready for Alistair and Invoker. But there are other light monsters you can use as well in this deck, so if you have to use it early and banish it early for Mechaba, it's not the end of the world. That's about all to say about that one. Extenders, defensive cards. If you're going first and you want to protect the board, you can summon cards like Winder. This makes it so that both players can only special summon once while this card is on the field, and then when she goes from the field to the graveyard, she gets back one of your Shaddoll spell and trap cards. Kaniga is really good. He's not got the best of stats, but his effect is stupidly powerful. If a player's monster effect attempts to activate, they cannot activate any more effects while this card is on the field. This is really good. You can use this very craftily. Like, let's say you want to stop your opponent from using hand traps, where you can put this card on the field. If your opponent does one hand trap, they cannot hand trap you again, unless it's like infinite impermanence. And then, but it's also just really good to have on the field after you finished your turn, so that you pressure your opponent entering their turn, and they have to find a way to destroy this monster before they can carry on their play. Now, this card is also really good because it requires Alistair and a dark monster, which Shaddolls are mostly dark, so it's easy to summon, but also you can use it via Super Poly in certain situations. Invoked Mechaba, the best invoke monster, provides you with a negate. You have to discard the same type of card to negate that type of card, and you can only do this once per turn. But you have plenty of spells which you can get back from the graveyard, so don't worry about discarding those. And similarly, your Shaddoll monster effects won't trigger, but if you have to discard them, it's not the end of the world. And you can recycle Alistair to do that too, so it is a self-sufficient combo. Mechaba is really good. And then you have Raijin as well. I really like Raijin in this deck because you can't summon Mechaba too much reliably. Raijin puts in a lot of work. He can be summoned out by instant fusion directly, and then if you want to, you can do instant fusion Raijin, flip it face down, and then it won't be destroyed during the end phase due to instant fusion's effect. Or you could just use it like as a removal card or defensive card, have it on your field. If your opponent tries to attack you, flip it face down. Or and in this day and age where people aren't so strictly reliant on link monsters and they're doing XE monsters and synchro monsters, flipping a monster face down can be very disruptive. It's really good. I really think Raijin's good. Plus, Alistair plus one win monster is good because you can use Wendy to make this monster, and Wendy is your best Shaddoll monster, so it's a nice little crossover point between the two there. Removal effects, we have obviously some of the cards we already spoke about. Construct can remove a card. Apollon can negate a card on the field. I don't think I'm playing double Apollon, I should get rid of that. And also Raijin can flip a card face down. The other cards we have are double Shaddoll Dragon. When this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can destroy a spell trap card on your field, so this is your main way of getting rid of back row. But you can also flip it face up to bounce a card on the field and return it to the hand. Then we have double super polymerization, a way of fusing your opponent's monsters with your monsters. Your Shaddoll cards and invoke cards have a variety of different attributes which they can do this with, particularly the dark one. A lot of people are playing dark monsters right now, and so you can use it to go with Winder and into Apollon, not Apollon, but Construct as well if they have light monsters in the field, and also Invoked Caliga. But also you can use it with Predaplant Verte Anaconda, change one of their monsters to dark, and use it to make Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, because this is a dark monster. The card its target is a dark monster, and you can just get rid of it off the field. It's a very good card. Super Poly isn't as generic as it can be, but in an Invoke deck or Shaddoll Invoke deck, it's very powerful. And then endgame cards, your main boss monsters are Invoked Purgatrio. Invoked Purgatrio can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, and does piercing damage to your opponent's monsters, so this could do a lot of damage very quickly. It does require fire, which is going to mainly mean Almirage or Shaddoll Core, but yeah, if you can make it out, it's a really good endgame card. And then we talked about how easy Rainbow Neos is to summon as well. 4,500 attack beta, can shuffle cards on either all their monsters, all their spells and traps, or cards from their graveyard back into the deck. And 4,500 attack beat stick is really powerful. Last thing we have are 2 engine requirements. These are for your Rainbow Neos fusion, so we play 1 Elemental Hero Neos and 1 Rainbow Dragon. These are also light monsters, so they can be used with Alistair to make Invoked Mechaba, so they're not too much of a brick in a deck like this as well. And so the final build altogether is, well, it's going to be this. Is there anything here I would change? I mean, double Window is really good, double cut Apollon is really good. I'm missing a card here. I can't seem to think about what it is. I know I took out Cross Sheep. I don't think Cross Sheep is really worth playing in this deck here, but I would go with, I don't know. It's up to you really what you could do here. You could do more instant fusion targets. You could do something like Millennium Eyes Restrict or 1,000 Eyes Restrict to take one of your opponent's monsters, which isn't bad. You could go for the Alistair Fusion, Alistair Elite monster. In fact, that's what I will probably go for. Where is he here? 2 monster types with different types, so that's always a good thing to do. Oh, no, I know what it is. There's no Starving Venom. That's what it was. So yeah, this is the final build here. So Starving Venom, let's go find it. It's all the way down here. So many targets for Super Poly. Going down a little bit, there he is. Starving Venom, this was the last card, my bad. So yeah, let's go quickly over the deck and then go into some gameplay. We have 1 Neos, triple Alistair, 1 Ariel, 1 Rainbow Dragon, 1 Wendy, 1 Beast, double Dragon, 1 Falco, double Hedgehog, 3 Squamata for spells. We have 3 El Shaddoll fusions, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Invocation, 3 Magical Meltdown, 1 Neos Fusion, 3 Shaddoll Fusion and double Super Poly, 1 Terraforming, 1 Rest Shaddoll Incarnation and 1 Shaddoll Core. For your extra deck we have double App Cologne, 1 Construct, double Winder, 1 Caliga, 1 Mechabar, 1 Purgatrio, 1 Raijin, 1 Rainbow Neos, 1 Starming Venom, 1 Gravity Controller, 1 Verte, 1 Amirage and 1 Gardener. If you guys want to learn how to play Pure Shaddolls or understand how these cards will work in a bit more detail or some of their combos and plays, feel free to go and watch the Pure Shaddoll deck profiles that I did. I did some tutorials last week about that in order to not have to focus on it so much when I came to this video. But yeah, so feel free to go and watch that. The link for those are in the description. But let's go into some gameplay and I'll show you how this deck works in action in an online ranked game. So we're going to go for this game here. And here we go against LD the Wanderer. So we're going second. What I liked about the Invoked Engine is it really helps this deck go second. The Shaddolls have very good defensive cards, but going second, they're a lot more limited. But playing this deck this way does make it a bit more flexible. It's good going first or second. And in our opening hand, we've got 1 Terraforming, 1 Neos Fusion, which are starters. If our opponent summons a card from the extra deck, Shaddoll Fusion can technically be used as a starter. And then we have Invocation and El Shaddoll Fusion as our extender. So my opponent here is playing some kind of dragon deck. It could be Dragon Link. He's sent Absolute Dragon to the graveyard, able to get Rocket Synchron. I don't think this is Dragon Link if we get adding Rocket Synchron, because that isn't the main target unless you would normally go for a Rocket Tracer, and maybe he has it in his hand already. But then he shows he's playing Red Eyes, which is cool, makes really good sense. I've done a lot of videos on Red Eyes recently, and Red Eyes with Rockets is a cool idea. I think that's pretty neat. And he uses Red Eyes Insight to do a search, and now he plays Red Eyes Fusion. Red Eyes Fusion can send cards from the deck directly to the graveyard, which is nice. However, Red Eyes Fusion makes it so that you cannot summon for the rest of the turn. And I really enjoyed doing Red Eyes. I think that I think the deck has a lot of potential, but man, it is a bit of a hodgepodge, a bit of a mess, a bit of a mishmash of a deck. So he summons up Meteor Black Comet Dragon. Fortunately for myself, I know exactly how every card here works. Meteor Black Comet Dragon doesn't really provide a lot of defensive measures. It will burn me for a bit, so he's only do 1200 damage. But it functions as an extender, and it won't be too hard to get this card on the field. But what was interesting was that the level 6 dragon monster that he sent to the graveyard was Mana Dragon Cernitron. Cernitron. It's got a weird funny name, but it's a cool looking dragon. Now, I know what that dragon does. It's not going to be a surprise to me, but I'm sure it will catch a lot of people off guard. And Mana Dragon Cernitron makes it so that if it's in the graveyard or in your hand, and your opponent gets rid of a spell and trap card on your field, it will summon itself to the field and give you back a spell and trap card from your graveyard or your banished pile. So it's a nice little tech that he's doing in this deck. I respect it. I like it. I think that will catch a lot of people off guard, but I'm not going to fall for that, I'm afraid. So we got a lot of fusion spells here. We have Instant Fusion just drawn into our hand. We've got a couple of other starters. So I want to actually start off with the Instant Fusion, because I want to see what negates he possibly has. But also, I'm assuming that he had the card Red Eyes Fang with Chain. And Red Eyes Fang with Chain can be used to remove your opponent's monsters, but it has to equip itself first and then activate the effect. So if I can go, I thought to myself, if I can flip his monster face down before he gets the chance to equip it, then, or if he didn't do it preemptively, then I've dealt with that threat. And it seemed to have worked so far, so I'm hoping one of those cards face down is Red Eyes Fang with Chain. Then I use Magical Meltdown to search out Alistar. And even though I've got Invocation in my hand already, I'm going to still play it out. This is our way of playing through negates. So if he has an Ash Blossom here, that's fine. Ash Blossom is very, very powerful against a card like Shaddoll Fusion, because you can technically send cards from your deck to the graveyard, so Ash Blossom can negate it even if you're not planning to do that. So it's a big vulnerability to it. So playing through Disruption early before you play Shaddoll Fusion is really, really good. I would have really liked to have used Shaddoll Fusion to send cards directly from the graveyard, but I didn't want it to get negated in this situation. And also, normally I would send Shaddoll Dragon to trigger out the back row, but I don't want to do that because the Cernitron's in the graveyard. So we used Alistar to make Amaraj, and now Amaraj is going to make Secure Gardener, put in a fire monster and a light monster into play. So here comes Secure Gardener, and then at this point we're just gonna, push for not push for game, but push for pressure, and see if my opponent trying to force out what interruption my opponent has. Now he very cleverly activates Call by the Grave here, and that's gonna banish Alistar from the graveyard. Now that will negate the effect of Alistar until the end of my next turn. But I don't really think that was the best idea, to be honest with you, because Invocation can get Alistar back from the managed pile. So it's good if he just wants to negate the effects, but I'm going to get it back anyway for Exit Invocation. Next we play Neo's Fusion. This card is so cheap, getting a 4,500 monster like this. It's so easy to play, and we sent 2 lights to the graveyard to make it work. And so now we're going to do... we're not going to use this effect to get rid of the Spell and Trap card, but what we will do is we will get rid of his monster on the field, because Comet Dragon, when it is sent to the graveyard, will shuffle, it's not shuffle, it will special summon back 1 Red Eyes monster from the graveyard, so we don't want to trigger that effect. So we're just going to shuffle it back into the extra deck and send the Secure Gardener to the graveyard, because we don't need to leave it on the field. Really, actually, to be honest with you, I probably should have sent Raijin. Raijin would have been a much better target, because it's going to get destroyed anyway. But, hey, it doesn't matter. So Raijin's being destroyed by instant fusion effect. And at this point, we're doing good, but we don't have a lot of materials in order to go from our extra deck. We have Invocation, but we don't have access to Alistar right now, so we can't use Invocation. And we can't use our Shaddoll cards, because we have no Shaddoll cards to fusion summon with right now, so that's a bit of a bummer, I'll be honest with you. So my opponent normal summons without Rocket Synchron, and this is a nice little interaction I never really thought about. By normal summoning Rocket Synchron, he can special summon a level 5 or higher Dark Dragon monster from his graveyard, and Red Eyes Black Dragon can be revived fire. This is really, really good. He now activates Red Eyes Fang with Chain, which is exactly what I thought that face down card would be, because it's really, for the Red Eyes archetype, it's really only one of the main forms of disruption. But the card that he summoned in defense had to be, by Rocket Synchron, had to be summoned in defense. So even though he stole my monster, he won't be able to attack with it this turn. So what I'm going to assume he'll do is he'll use his level 1 tuner and his level 7 monster to go into a level 8 Synchro. And that could be really, really troublesome. There are a lot of powerful level 8 Synchros, but with his Rocket Monster activated, I think he's locked into Dark Monsters for the rest of the turn, and so that means his options are either things like Void Ogre, Dragon, but that can only use his effect if he has no cards in his hand, but then it can negate 1 Spell and Trap card per turn. Borrowed Savage Dragon can obviously be used, but you only want to use Borrowed Savage Dragon when there's a Link Monster in your graveyard, so you can get counters to do the gates, and he hasn't summoned a Link Monster yet. So, he's going to go for Beals. So Beals comes out to the field. This card used to be so oppressive back in early Synchro era when this card came out. It was a really, really hard card to deal with. So Beals makes it so that it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. And if you take damage from an attack involving this card, so you attack it with something bigger to do, it will then increase its attack by the damage it took, or like the damage the opponent took. So getting rid of this card can be very, very annoying to do so. And yeah, it's a tough card. He then plays Ruins of the Divine Dragon Lords. This card makes it so that if he controls a level 7 or 8 Dragon Monster, he can negate the face-up special summon effect of a monster. That special summon, I think, is what it says. Bad card. Something I don't really want to deal with right now. But he's got a card from the extra deck, so now we're going to play Shaddoll Fusion and send 2 cards to the graveyard. And so this is going to get our Shaddoll engine going. So we're definitely going to send Wendy, want to send Wendy every single turn. And then the second best card to send is Squamata. So Squamata will go to the graveyard as well. And then we're going to summon out a App Cologne. And App Cologne is going to hit the field. And we're going to be able to negate a card on the field and see what that will do. We could negate Beals, but I have another plan for Beals, so I don't really care about negating it. So what I'm going to do is negate the continuous spell card on the field instead, and stop that from negating the face-up special summon monster's effects. I think that card is it optional? I guess it's optional. I guess he didn't use it because I was thinking that he would use it on my app clone, but he's not chaining to it, so I guess we'll just use it now and make sure that he can't negate something else. So Invoked Shaddoll Wendy will activate, and then Squamata will also trigger as well, starting a new chain. Squamata will send a card from our deck to the graveyard, and in this situation we've got enough spells, don't really want to send those. I could go for the Incarnation combo with Aerial, but there's no Shaddolls I really want to summon to the field right now, so I'm just going to send out Hedgehog. That's going to give us another Shaddoll card in our hand later on. And the card we're going to summon from the deck, I'm probably going to go for Beast. Beast, when flip face up, can allow us to draw more cards. Oops, there goes my alarm. Oops. Early morning recording. And then, yeah, we summon Beast to the field, level 5 monster, a bit of a beat stick too. And then we're going to negate the effect of these Runes of Divine Dragon Souls. And I think it just tried to trigger, but it's too late now. So, yeah, I don't know how good that card is really, to be honest with you. Maybe it's just not being used correctly here, but I don't know if it's really that good. And then select the cards to add from your deck to your hand. So we're going to add a Wendy. I did this because we can use it on a follow-up turn. If I do get access to Alistar, we could use Wendy to make, well, I already used Raijin, so that's not an option actually. But we could use it with El Shaddoll Fusion to trigger the effect. And so now we're going to play Super Polymerization. And Super Polymerization is going to fuse the 2 darks away. So we're going to get rid of Beast and we're going to get rid of Beals. And that's a really, really good, easy way for us to out Beals. And we're going to make El Shaddoll Winder. This looks like it will be game. But even if it wasn't, El Shaddoll Winder would put a lot of pressure on my opponent. You know, because it will restrict how many summons can be made. So we're going to trigger Beast effect. Beast is going to let us draw 1 card. And this is, yeah, this is really just kind of what Invoked Shaddoll does in action. It's a very, very good fusion deck. It can break sometimes, even with the invoked cards, it can break sometimes. And maybe you can, I don't know if you can feel it or see it from this video, but sometimes it can be very hard to go from one engine to the other, but depending on what you draw. But once it does get going, it can work really, really well. So Sean X, man, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it will help you out. And for everyone that watched this video, thank you as always. Greatly appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Take care.